Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
I want to talk about something that's been really exciting around here, and that is our partnership with our friends at Ford. Ford Motor Company and your North Texas Ford, or your Texas Ford dealers have announced an expanded sponsorship of the UIL State Championships, solidifying Ford as the official automotive sponsor of the UIL. As part of the new commitment, Ford will now support all UIL extracurricular activities, including athletic, academic, and music state championship competitions. In addition to the sponsorship, Ford is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the prestigious Built Ford Tough Player of the Week Award and Player of the Year Award. This campaign has become one of the most celebrated in Texas high school sports, recognizing standout athletes, student athletes, for their on-field performance, leadership, and commitment to excellence. Ford will honor some of the most decorated players who have received the award over the years, with a special focus being on their achievements both in high school and beyond. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, all former Built Ford Tough Players of the Year, and we're partnering with them to amplify that. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we're going to be amplifying the celebration through our partnership through all of our different platforms, so Texan Live, as well as here on this program and over the course of our social media as well, and TexasFootball.com. We're really, really excited to be partnering with Ford to help celebrate all of the things in Texas high school sports across the landscape. So more to come on that. There's more information on TexasFootball.com, but we're so thrilled to announce that partnership in Texas and the Texas Ford Dealers' expanded partnership as the official automotive sponsor of or partner of the UIL State Championships. We certainly are very, very excited about the future there.
Hello and welcome into a special edition of the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. We got your regulars here. I'm your host, Carter Yates. That is senior writer Mike Craven, and we are joined by Joe Cook, the managing editor of Inside Texas, an On3 Sports affiliate. They cover all things Texas Longhorns. You can find them at Joseph Cook 89 on X. Joe, first question. We unveiled our magazine cover a couple weeks ago. Steve Sarkeesian on the cover. What'd you think of that cover? And if you say you didn't like it, this interview's over.
No, I love the cover. I like the redesign. I was surprised there's going to be burnt orange on there again because Quinn was on there last year, and I know y'all like to mix it up. I know the gatefold helps out with that problem. But I was a little surprised it wasn't Arch, but I understand why you can't maybe put a Texas quarterback on there back-to-back years. But yeah, makes sense. They are the biggest story in Texas football, the state of Texas football. I feel like that's safe to say. I don't think there's burnt orange colored glasses on. I think SMU obviously has a great story, but there's a national title contender within the state of Texas, and it's within the city of Austin, and it's Steve Sarkeesian's program. So I'm looking forward to getting my copy. I'll get it early, so I do subscribe, and can't wait to read through it. And I think I mentioned this to you, Carter. One of the big reasons I keep a Dave Campbell, not just for the summer reading, but throughout the year, it's a great argument ender. How big is this school? How many people go to this town? And if you want to find out if how many people go to West High School, that's a good way to end an argument and see what division they're in. And last I checked, they're in 3A. So always fun getting my hands on a Dave Campbell. I got a stack of them just off screen.
Speaking of Steve Sarkeesian, kind of what were your expectations when he was hired, and kind of what's it been like covering his tenure and just kind of the rise that he's had there in Austin?
I know we're not supposed to play favorites, but Mike, you know the industry, you know what covering a team closely is like. But when I knew that the Tom Herman era was ending, and that was the thick of the Urban Meyer stuff, and I'm just looking around and thinking, like, you know, the off field stuff was there, and I didn't like that. And I know not every program is lily white, but at the same time, I'm just kind of thinking like, exactly are you changing? Going from Tom Herman to Urban Meyer, you think just yelling louder and with rings on is going to change things? And so looking around the landscape, Texas tries to go and get big fish, and I know there were some other big fish bandied about, but I like the idea of Steve Sarkeesian. And in 2020, I think you had to give some a realistic look at the money aspect, because all the different ways athletic departments were cutting. And if you were going to pay Tom Herman's buyout, well, maybe that meant you weren't going to go big elsewhere. Well, Steve Sarkeesian, I always thought if he had his, it is kind of ironic to look at it this way, if he had his off the field stuff checked out, and I'm going to trust Nick Saban more than anybody on that front, I thought you have a guy who can recruit with the best of them, who is basically an offensive innovator, and has hired great defensive coaches and has great connections. So I was dating back to basically October of 2020, I was kind of on the Sark train. And then once that happened on, what was it, January 2nd, 2021, I gave a small fist pump, went home from Lions, wrote the story. And I didn't think the first year would be 5-7 though. I knew it would take some time to get things changed up a little bit. I didn't expect a 6-game losing streak. I didn't expect to see them manhandled versus Arkansas. And again, with that being with the SEC change in the backdrop, there are a lot of punches thrown on that burnt orange punching bag that was on the ground. But you saw the incremental buildup. You saw the development. The recruiting definitely came to life. The portal aspect was there. NIL, of course, helped Texas. The roster built up thanks to and the team did better thanks to Bijan Robinson, guys like just looking around the defense and seeing some of the other big guys who were drafted throughout those years, and they built up to the title contender. And 2023, they made their run. They ran into one of the best passing teams ever, so they fixed their defense. And then 2024 made their run, ran into some really good teams, and a hobbled Cam Williams and a toss sweep away from tying a game against the eventual national champion. So I think the Steve Sarkeesian era, even though the buildup was a little slow, has now gone as well as a Texas fan could ask for. And looking at it this way, Texas coaches don't get fifth years often. It was one of those things where, Mac Brown was there from 98 to 13. Charlie Strong got 3 years. Tom Herman got 4 years. I think, Makovic? I think he got canned in year 5. McWilliams maybe made it to 6. So Texas isn't a program that has patience unless you're winning, and Steve Sarkeesian's winning. So that's why the vibes and the feel around the program as they enter year 2 in the SEC are on a really high level right now.
It just seems like Texas is a machine right now, on the field and off the field. I promise we'll get to the X's and O's here in a second, but an off-the-field question for me is, with impending revenue sharing coming up in college athletics, and it's been reported by Kirk Bowles that Texas has a $45 million roster. Now, they're not going to confirm it. You don't know where exactly they are, but they're spending good money on their roster. When revenue share caps it at 22 million, I believe that's what it's supposed to be for all sports, how does NIL still factor in, do you think, in revenue share?
That's a big question kind of in the Texas ecosystem, because there is a little bit of uncertainty with the Texas One Fund, whether that's going to exist as we currently know it when the House starts when House starts on July 1st. But an advantage that Texas does have compared to a lot of other college towns is that it's in the city of Austin, a top 10 metropolitan area. And, maybe you can go to, I'll pick on one city here, Auburn. Auburn is a close-knit place. It's a great community. It's got fervent, crazy boosters. I think boosters that are crazier than Texas boosters. But your sphere of influence is Auburn. Maybe you can pick Birmingham and Atlanta and Huntsville, but you're picking there. Whereas if you're in the city of Austin, you have so many different businesses and so many different entities that can come in and help from that NIL perspective, and probably pay that fair market value in a way that whatever it is, NIL Go, Deloitte, or Big Four overlords are going to see fit. So I think Texas, while they're still figuring out maybe some stuff from the collective side of things, I think their position as far as being in the city of Austin, growing there, and having that city around them to provide so many different opportunities. And it's not just Lamborghini. I know that's the one people point at, but there are so many different opportunities within the city of Austin to not only make a name for yourself, but to have opportunities for revenue, for name, image, and likeness, to where I think they're in a good position. It's going to take some ironing out of the details, but I think that there are a lot of teams, the ones that are uniquely situated in large cities, that are going to have some distinct advantages, maybe compared to some ones that are just in some small college towns.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think for the first time in college athletics, it's an advantage to be in a big city, and for a lot of times it wasn't. It's been over 8 minutes since we've been recording, so I think the embargo's over on the Arch Manning question. I think I'm allowed to get this one in now at this point. You kind of like read the national magazines and you just kind of like watch the podcast, and it doesn't feel like there's many questions about like if Arch Manning's going to hit the ground running and be a really good quarterback. Like, what is your sense on just what Arch is? Not long-term, because I think we all agree that he's going to be a really good quarterback, but just like the first game at Ohio State, he's got to go to Georgia, the Oklahoma game. Like, are you sure, how confident are you that Arch is as good year one as a lot of people are expecting him to be?
For a guy with 2 starts against 2 teams that went 7-17 combined, it's about as confident as you can be. I think that's the fair way of putting it. Obviously, he lit it up when he came in against UTSA. He lit it up against ULM, still had some picks. He threw some great passes and kind of led the team that was sputtering against a Mississippi State team that had a great game plan. And then you saw him work in some situational ways throughout the course of the rest of the season. There's so much confidence just because of all the intangibles he has, the throw ability that he already possesses and that has displayed, and that he's a third-year guy. A lot of times when you're handing over the keys, it may be to a true freshman, it may be to a redshirt freshman. This is a redshirt sophomore who's played in games, who does have an SEC start. So while I understand that there may be some hesitation about like, well, what has he actually done? And there's a little bit of value to that. You look at the prospect of Arch and the on-field experience, think this is not one of those, this is not a typical handing of the keys situation. This is about as prepared as a quarterback can be, who already has a lot of almost inherent preparation already to take over for an SEC team. But you're right, Ohio State, especially against a former NFL head coach running that defense with Matt Patricia in the shoe, even though it's at noon Eastern, that's going to be a very, very tough test. That Oklahoma game, nobody knows what it's like until you play in it. Georgia, Sanford Stadium is a place that I don't think Kirby Smart's lost a regular crowd game since his first year. So he's going to have those challenges. But he seems like the type of quarterback to where if you're turning over a quarterback, you're losing a guy to the NFL and you have to bring someone or you're starting someone new, probably the best case scenario Steve Sarkeesian could ever ask for.
What do you think about the supporting cast that'll be around him? Like, you can talk about Quinn Ewers versus Arch Manning all you want, but like a quarterback is often only as good as his supporting cast. When I look at Texas on paper, they replace a lot. I like the running backs almost better because CJ Baxter comes back. The wide receivers are different. I feel like there are a lot of 6'2", bigger body guys, whereas Quinn Ewers had a lot of like Ferraris out there, smaller, speedier wide receivers. And then the offensive line, to me, I don't like near as much as I liked it last year. Where's your head at on the supporting cast?
Running back, I like it. I see a lot of these outlets saying they're the number 1 running back room in the country and things like that. I'm a little hesitant on that. I love Trey Wisner. Like, if you're looking at a gamer, that's who you find. The picture of him on the bike at Kyle Field is one that's always going to resonate with me. Joking about like, I don't get tired. You were tired, but you're not letting it affect you. And I love that in a running back. But he was running back 3, most likely entering the season, maybe running back 2. CJ Baxter, of course, goes down, and reports are that he's moving around. I know that's a a term thrown around, but he's actually going through drills, participating, cutting, all the things like that. With a knee injury like that, yeah, you can run, yeah, you can cut, but it's different when you put the pads on. We'll see what happens, I guess, in late July or early August when that happens. And then again, how much they trust him when it's time to play in Columbus. You lose Jaden Blue to the draft, but you still have Wisner back. I think what you saw from Wisner is what you're going to get. Tough running, going to chug, going to chug. May not be the breakaway guy, but is someone who you can come in and trust to do a lot of different things, both in whatever scheme you run and out of the backfield. Some of the wild cards, I guess to say, is you have Christian Clark, who had an Achilles injury right after Baxter's knee injury in camp last year. There were a lot of high hopes for him. People can see an Arizona running back and be talented and think, oh, there's the next Bijan, and I'm not there. I don't think that's the case. But he was a very talented back, and they had high hopes for him in the days after Baxter went down, and that all went away pretty quickly. He's back and moving around, made a nice quick recovery from that Achilles injury. Someone who's going to factor in the other running back to keep note of. And, oh, man, it's good. Jarrett Gibson, there we go, from Florida. He was someone who they trusted earlier in the year. They liked him running the football, non-starter in pass protection, just couldn't do it. So he had to make some gains there. And then they brought in a couple different guys, James Simon out of Louisiana, and then Ricky Stewart from those great Chapel Hill teams. So they have a good running back room. They have a new coach in Chad Scott after Tashard Choice goes to the NFL to coach for the Lions. They're probably going to be running a bit more gap scheme stuff. And that really bodes well, I think, for Baxter and even for Jarrett Gibson. If you watch Baxter's high school film from Edgewater in Florida, a lot of gap scheme. I don't think he read a butt once. He just went and he just followed the gap and went. That'll suit his play really well. He also looks a little bit bigger, about 220 right now. Gibson, I think he's also the type of guy that you point and shoot with. You saw his touchdown against Michigan, and he was following a couple lead blockers into the end zone, got 100 yards versus his hometown team in Florida. So I think the running back room is in good shape. I think you'll see a good amount of gap schemes there from them. And who knows? I think they may have tried to go to the portal, but didn't find what they were looking for. We'll see what happens in recruiting and what they do next year. Wide receiver wise, I'll start at tight end. Jordan Washington suffered a collarbone injury during spring practices. He was someone they have a lot of high hopes for to be next in line after Jatavian Sanders and Gunnar Helm. That may have stunted him a little bit. And I think even before that injury, they were looking to make an addition there. Even so, I like what Jordan Washington brings. Just a huge guy. If you ever shook his hand, your hand got crushed. Just someone who I think playing for a mediocre Langham Creek team was a little bit used as a go win the game guy instead of an actual tight end. And he's someone who I think will have a good year. But Jack Endries, who they added out of the portal from Cal, all ACC selection, probably looks a little bit more receiver-ish when you think at tight ends, but someone who makes those tough catches over the middle. Was a safety valve for Fernando Mendoza and the Bears last year. I think Arch is going to look to him a lot. They return, of course, Ryan Wingo, who I think people believe will be Arch's primary target. I'm thinking that way as well. 6'3", blazing speed, needs to get the finer points of route running. And there were some times when at the high point, he would just lose the battle. He would lose those battles with defensive backs. And, those are things that you can understand from a freshman receiver. But you want to see him take that step in year two. DeAndre Moore comes back, and I think he is one of the guys who's drawn a lot of positive reviews in the 7-on-7 training that Texas has done so far this summer. Played a lot of slot, kind of was a successor to Jordan Whittington in that role, made a lot of key catches for the Longhorns over the course of the season, and someone who they believe can be a breakout guy. They added Emmett Mosley from Stanford. He may end up in the slot and bump DeAndre Moore outside, 6'2", from California, someone that they had recruited until a knee injury occurred in his senior year, kind of backed off of him, went to Stanford. And for a Stanford team that really struggled to do much, if anything, on offense, was a very good pass catching target for them. Started once he got healthy, recorded some big games, even had good games against the good competition in the ACC. So I like that top three. Their 2025 class brought in a lot of big-time receivers. Khalil Lockett as someone who has a bright future. But I wouldn't be surprised if Parker Livingstone works his way into Steve Sarkeesian's tight wide receiver rotation. 6'4", probably similar-ish skill set to what Ryan Wingo does, but someone there who has speed on the outside and can probably do some turn and burn things that Steve Sarkeesian likes from his offense.
Offensive line wise, they have to replace a lot. I think what's most interesting about the Texas program to me is like a couple of years ago, if you're like Texas is going to compete for a national championship, you just get booed off the stage, right? Like Texas is going to blow one. You can't count on them. But like now I feel like we just give Texas the benefit of the doubt. And on the offensive line, it feels like mostly true. What do you think Kyle Flood's group's going to look like up front there?
Yeah, you can look at the macro level and see, whoa, they lost 4 starters. 3 got drafted, 1 got signed as a free agent, and Jake Majors, Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor, Cam Williams all go to the NFL and think, oh, man, stepping back, 4 starters. Here's the thing. The likely replacement at center, Cole Hudson, basically split snaps for most of his first 3 years on campus. So while he may not be a starter, the guy's seen plenty of game action. DJ Campbell comes back at right guard, and high expectations for him. He's actually ranked higher, according to On3, than Banks. So expectations are high for him. And the gap scheme that I mentioned is something that should help him. Trevor Gooseby, who stood in against Texas A&M for a little bit against Clemson, and then against Georgia in the SEC title game, they think he could be a one-and-done guy at left tackle. So left guard, you're looking probably at Neto Umeozulu, and that kind of leads into why there's a little bit of optimism for Texas on that offensive line, even as they're replacing guys. If you're replacing offensive linemen, you'd rather it be guys who are in their 3rd or 4th year or highly touted. Neto Umeozulu fits into that role. 4th-year guy, classified as a junior, hasn't seen a ton of live action, but again, 4th-year guy, if you're going to pick somebody, or if you're going to look for an option to replace, you'd rather they have that level of experience in the program. On the other side, the highly touted aspect, that's Brandon Baker from Mater Dei out in California. He was a 5-star, I think, in the 2024 class. He has a good chance to get that right tackle spot. And then looking around the rest of the line, Connor Robertson from Westlake, someone who also was from that 2022 class. I think he's entering his 4th year in the program. Could earn his way onto the starting 5 at center, maybe bump Hudson over to left guard. But that just speaks to all the different ways that Kyle Flood has replenished that pipeline to where you're not relying on Kelvin Banks to come in and start at left tackle right away and face Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. You're looking for 2nd and 3rd year guys, maybe even 4th year guys, either highly touted 2nd year guys or experienced 3rd and 4th year guys to be your options on the starting offensive line. So it's going to look different, like I mentioned, gap scheme, as opposed to a lot of the zone that you would see Steve Sarkeesian run over and over, whether wide zone or inside zone. But a lot of experience, even if it doesn't look like starts in the magazine sense, as y'all know.
And going over to the defensive side now, let's talk about the line too. So I feel good about the edges. With Colin Simmons, who's a beast, Trey Moore out there. But what has characterized Texas defense the last 3 years is interior defensive line play. It was Moro Jomo, Keandre Coburn, then Byron Murphy, T. Sweat. Last year offered Collins, Vernon Broughton. They've always had like this dynamic duo in there. Can they do it a 4th time this year, do you think?
They're going to try. And the dynamic duo isn't just those two. It's a dynamic quartet. They really, if you're playing 68 snaps a game, something like that, they want to split it half and half to where your frontline guys, your Sweats and Murphys, your Collins and Broughtons are playing in those crunch time snaps. And I think most teams are like that. It's not like they're reinventing the wheel. But they did go to the transfer portal big in this most recent window. Travis Shaw from North Carolina, Cole Brevard from Purdue, Hero Canoe from Ohio State are a lot of the guys. I think Shaw and Brevard are going to work their way into that rotation. Alex January out of Duncanville is someone that they really want to take another leap. You saw him get some snaps in the national or in the semifinal game against Ohio State. They really think that that's somebody that can take a big step up during this offseason and work his way up there. There are two intriguing additions. One, of course, they signed in the 2025 class, and one they added in the spring window. One's Murad Watson from Syracuse. I'm going to trust Fran Brown on defense. And I saw Murad Watson, some clips of him playing against Washington State in their bowl game, and he's playing every position on the line. Freshman All-American, doing it all. And I think that's someone who, maybe as a late addition via the spring portal, you're kind of wondering like, okay, what's this guy going to be like? I could see him starting. Like, I think he's got that type of talent and could do some Byron Murphy type things, maybe in his role, not so much in his first round play. And then, got to talk about the 5-star that they landed from Georgia, Justice Terry, beat the Bulldogs out for the Manchester, Georgia. If you look at him, you're wondering, how old is this guy? He can't just be a 17, 18-year-old. We'll see what happens with him. I think he didn't play a whole lot during his senior year due to injury. The frame is already mature, as like I said, anybody can see. But he may be someone that they get his feet wet first before going forward, and that means some specialty packages and things like that. But they love how he's acclimated to Austin, and a lot of high hopes for him.
Can you imagine going to algebra class and then like having to go play against that guy like afterward? I just can't even imagine that.
Yeah, he was in like 2A football in Georgia. So I mean, imagine like not even just algebra class. I've always wondered for things like that, and thinking about other, big players who come from, small high schools. You do that. What if you have to go to your like 4-H meeting the next day and have to start working on, whatever your project is like that? I can't imagine what it's like seeing someone who's a 5, or like, what was it? Derrick Henry would just run all over people. And, you could just tell that this was a different person on the football field. I know it's I think there was more than just beating up on weak competition with Terry, as you could see by who was pursuing him throughout his process.
Texas has arguably the best linebacker group in the country. Anthony Hill being the headliner there. LaFau's really good. I want to talk about the secondary. Malik Muhammad's going to start at one corner, Michael Taft at deep safety. I would imagine Derek Williams at the other safety if he's completely healthy. How do you kind of see nickel in the opposite corner of Malik kind of playing out?
Yeah, I think with the other corner, it's going to come down to a competition between Jalen Gilbo and Kobe Black. Gilbo played star, that nickel position for Texas last year. Really tough spot. You've got the run stopping responsibilities. You've got slot receivers and tight ends with two-way goes. You can look at his PFF stats and his film and see he got picked on a little bit, but that's just a really, really difficult position in the defense. So not saying he's going to make the same leap Jahdae Barron did going from star to corner, but it's a different position, and one that I think that the coaches believe he can make. But Kobe Black has had a great winter, spring, and summer. Someone who has corner length and has stayed at corner size instead of maybe bulking up to safety or something like that. I'm with you on Williams. I think there's a lot of optimism that he can return healthy and play safety alongside. There's also Jonah Williams coming off the baseball field, electric left fielder for the Longhorns, and someone they think is just as electric on the football field. They're going to have to find a role for him. I think star, they're going to try to get Jelani McDonald there. And he's someone who they originally recruited as a linebacker, and I think started calling him, maybe you're an athlete, maybe everything, so they could fit in 3 other linebackers in the class. But he didn't gain maybe as much as the Texas coaches expected. I think he's still sitting around 205, something like that. And he got real game experience last year. He played star kind of as that, if they didn't really want to do a 4-3, they would keep him out there as maybe an extra or as that star to provide a little bit more, physicality. You saw that in the Michigan game plenty, and even some against Georgia. Made a great leaping interception against Kentucky, I believe it was. There's faith that he can do that, but he's got to do it. Outside of that, it's a little bit of something that remains to be seen. Grayson Littleton, a freshman from Tampa, has drawn positive reviews already, but I don't really think that Pete Kwiatkowski will trust a freshman at that key position on the defense. So, like you mentioned, having Taft, having Muhammad, Williams coming back if healthy, even though you're losing Barron and Makuba to the NFL, you're still keeping a lot of that core from that great pass defense there, and a lot of guys who were not only in action last year, but studying under some of those great Austin defensive backs.
Texas has come basically one play away from the national championship the last 2 years. So I feel like, just outside looking in, it's got to be national championship or bust for this team this year. Do you agree with that sentiment, or is this still kind of like playoff or bust?
I'm always very generous with my expectations, probably too much so. Entering 2023, I was just kind of like, compete for the Big 12 championship, try to win it when you're going out, not only for that pride aspect, but to prove that, okay, you've taken that third step as a program and have gone up and become a conference title contender. But when you're that close, when you're a pass to Adonai Mitchell away, when you're a toss sweep away, you want more. And now you look at the program being there and where it is now with the talent they have, the talent invested, can't discount that aspect of it, and what you're paying Steve Sarkeesian, what you're trying to accomplish in the SEC. You can't just be playoff or bust, especially in the 12-team era. I would have thought that if they had lost to Arizona State in the Peach Bowl last year, it would have been well short of the expectations. They really, especially when you're sitting at number 1 or number 2 or number 3 for most of the season. I think that the way to look at it is, not just playoff or bust, not national championship or bust, because there are 136 teams, there are 60 teams competing, there are 30 teams competing. It's still there's still really, really hard to win a national championship. It's always difficult. That's why the celebrations are so big. That's why the memories are so cherished. But I think if Texas fails to at least get to the same station that they were the past 2 years, whether 4-team or 12-team, it'll be disappointment. And that's not going to heat up Steve Sarkeesian's seat at all, but a season under expectations will be what that will be. And, they'll have to, especially when you have Arch Manning and your time with Arch Manning, because of the way you handled the quarterback situation, I think very capably, but still your time with Arch Manning is maybe a year shorter than you thought it would. Not to say he's going into the draft, but that you maybe only have 2 years instead of 3.
I think the last time I looked, Circa had the over and under at 9.5, but I feel like that one allows a little bit of an easy over to take the 10-2. So if I set the over and under at 10, with the road game at Ohio State, road game at Georgia, I think at Florida is tougher than people realize. That's a week before Red River, and then that Oklahoma game's crazy. A&M Texas, it's a rivalry game. Who knows what happens? You think it's more likely Texas goes 11-1 or 9-3?
Can I middle you there and just push my bet and go 10?
You're not getting out of here without a record prediction.
That's why I made it 10 instead of 9.5, because I figured I'll do otherwise.
I'll do the over there. I could see this being a team that either, maybe falters week 1 at Ohio State, tough environment, first big road start for Arch Manning, falters against the team that itself is returning or turning over a lot of production and coaches as well. But if they win Ohio State, I could also see them maybe slipping up at Georgia. I just think that, there's a lot that depends on DJ Lagway's shoulder. We'll see what happens with that. I think the retentions Florida made were key, and that the Swamp's always tough to play in. But I think Texas has the capability to go in there and win. And they've been very battle tested. This is a team that has not lost a true road game since Oklahoma State in 2022. They've been to tough environments. As much as people may not like to say, they've been to Michigan. Although whatever that Michigan team was, sure, it's still 108,000 people. They've been to Kyle Field. They've been to, a Georgia Dome that was, even though that's a neutral site game, that's a very red and black environment, and it's not just the seats. They've been to tough places, and they've been battle tested. I think we'll have to see if that new quarterback can carry that over. But, we're coming up on almost 3 calendar years since their last true road loss. So it's a hard torch to carry, but they've shown a lot of resolve and keeping that going over the past few seasons.
Well, you heard it here first. 11-2 national championship or bust from Joe Cook at Inside Texas. Joe, thank you so much for joining us on Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. Carter Yates, Mike Craven. Thank you, Joe. You got any plugs you wanna send out there to the people? Where can they find you at?
Yeah, head to Inside Texas, part of On3. Obviously, this is a fun time of year. It's talking season, so we'll have everything Texas Longhorns covered, and then season will be here before we know it, and I'll be out there on Denny sweating my butt off.
See you there.